Welcome into another episode of Preacher in the Hat. My name is Eric. Across from me, my brother Derek. To my right, my dad Steve. And behind the cameras and on a hot mic, as always, our man, Mr. Chris Sumter.
Yay!
So we got the whole squad here, and we are... you'll be listening to this just a couple days after we recorded it. So we have just turned the page into November on the calendar, which means... one of my least favorite weekends of the year, which is fall back for daylight savings. We normally record these episodes on Tuesday nights. We get together around 7. As of right now, it's about 8 p.m. And it's 8 p.m. And let me tell you, it feels like it might be 10 or 11 because it's already been dark for 3 hours. And
Indeed.
In the summer, we have to wait until this time to record so that there's some, because we've got a bunch of windows in here so we wait until 8 a lot of times to make sure that it's almost like a little bit darker. But like you said, now it's been dark for 3 hours. It pulled up in the driveway tonight and it had already been dark for like 2 hours. And yeah. Don't love it. But Anyway, that's neither here nor there, and certainly not here. We are going to be talking about community this evening. It's something that we've touched on quite a bit over the course of some of our podcast episodes. We're into the 70s now, as far as number of episodes go. I'm not sure which number it was, but we had. If you're interested in kind of going back to the first time we ever talked about something in this vein, we did an episode called The Forge about a year ago in October of 2024. If you want to go back, listen to that. Iron Sharpens Iron was kind of our theme there, based on a movie by the same title that we saw around that time.
Which
called
we went together to watch.
Exactly.
Sure did.
So that was kind of where that conversation started. We're going to pick it up tonight because I felt like this is something that we deal with. I don't want to say men especially. I would put that, the reason that pops into my head obviously is because I am a man. But and so there's some bias there obviously, and you just, you kind of see it in other men, that a lot of times we feel like, I don't know if there's part of us that I think there's part of us sometimes that wants to go through life alone or feel more alone, or maybe we're scared to bring other people into what we're dealing with. I don't know. Something like that. Am I completely wrong? Or is it like, obviously that's not every person everywhere, but I feel like for myself, like if I'm going through something, I'm very, very careful on how quickly I would let someone else in on it. Especially other men. Someone not my wife, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think it's a common thing for men to do that. I don't know that that's how we were designed, but I think it's pretty common for that to happen. So I don't know if it means that that's how we were designed, but yeah. One thing that they talk about a lot is that men probably experience isolation even more than women do sometimes. And sure, there's individual cases where that's not true, but I think for the most part, men are isolated more, relationally at least. They might work together, they might have fun together, they may do a few things like that, but in terms of a sense of doing life together, nah, not necessary. Probably. I don't know. Is that what you see in other men, or you just feel it? What do you think? Is that what we see in other men or not?
I don't know if this is probably just semantics. I think we are more likely to isolate ourselves than we are to, for us to say, oh, men are so isolated. It's like, well, a lot of the problem with that is
us doing it.
You're right, men.
I agree with that.
Themselves.
I agree with that.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I would say women in general probably are a little bit better at involving other people in what they're going through. And I don't know if I really have a reason for that other than, you can kind of point back to some of the stoicism that was preached, decades before about how men gotta, just kind of grin and bear it and whatever. That probably plays a little bit of a factor as well. But I would say nowadays it's across the board. It may be a little bit more common in men in terms of isolation, but like I think you can see that pretty much. I think what we've done with like communities that we used to include ourselves in, and so obviously for us, we're used to communities being church, small groups, that that sort of thing. Maybe things that are even more universal would be groups of friends at school or work, that sort of thing. That people get themselves involved in. But I think a lot of what we've done over the past 20, 25 years is replace those communities with, I think it's almost like pseudo community, like things that we think are like that, like interacting with people online or on social media. What?
No, I'm agreeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just saw the look on your face, and I think that's something that we've plugged in to make us think that we're with other people, or not even consciously, but like accidentally we've done that and think, oh, that's how, that's where I get connection, that's where I get community. And it's tough to do. It's almost kind of like I know Chris has had a lot of opinions on this over the last 5 years or so, but it's almost kind of like the idea behind church versus online church. Everybody's got an opinion on that. And is online church good enough? I was kind of hoping Chris was going to pipe up there.
He's got the mic pointed the other way.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's all right.
I would say that that debate itself is pretty informative. By itself, probably pretty informative. That debate itself, online church and church, it's informative to me anyhow, or it's instructive maybe about where people are at, and the idea of whether. And I think we talked about this maybe on one of the podcasts before. Is that the whole idea about what is it about presence? Physical presence. Does physical presence matter? Does physical presence matter? I mean, or is it just as good to be online? Is it just as good to? Is that the new physical presence? Is that the new physical presence? But what is it about touch? What is it about smell? What is it about? Just
you're losing me.
I'm losing you.
He led with touch and smell. You're losing me.
But I mean, it's real. That's real stuff, and that's real stuff.
I remember one time you said something that stuck with me. I'm going to get it wrong, but I'm still going to say it because it's going to get us into the conversation. But you said that we have dirtied up touch in our culture. And then until you experience it in a right way, it really moves you, like to your point of what you're saying. What I mean? I was seeing this therapist, and he said one time, Chris, we need to do a Zoom session. I said, I ain't doing it. You can be there by yourself.
You can log on.
You can log on. Like, I'm not doing it.
Right.
And I don't know what it is. I mean, I might be old school because I think kids grow up and they're all over the place with the stuff, but it does not ring the same with me, and I can't get through it. I mean, I just can't do it.
You're a big online church guy, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
There's so many benefits on the one hand because you have.
That's the lie they sell you.
But you think about how people who live cross country and a grandparent can FaceTime their grandkid that they only get to see once a year, and they can see their face and actually like talk to them.
That's a good thing.
Like that, like to me, those are positives. Just like everything else, we see it all get warped into the extreme where you dial into a conference call where everybody's at their desk sitting 20 feet away. You
watch the live stream of your church that's 3 minutes from your house instead of going in. So like, you're like, okay, yeah, that's bad. You don't need the live stream. Like you should come in. But so it always starts out like when you think about how when FaceTime first came up, you're like, man, so many people are going to get to be connected visually throughout the world.
And that's true.
You know what I'm saying? And you're like, and you see this pure, you see the pure intention of something like that. And then it just gets like everything else, like absolutely everything else. It's more until you're like, this is stupid.
Well, for the advantage of that, I saw that with our family member Anna, whose parents are in China. I'm so glad that she can FaceTime her parents. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that is so much better. You think about if they'd had no contact like that. Wow, that would be a different ball game.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is very positive. I think maybe the term that somebody that we know in the past has used the term phygital, which is a combination of physical and digital. And
oh, brother.
What did you say?
I know it brings
Did
up
you
a
say that
sore
really
spot.
slow 3 times?
Phygital. Yeah, that's the term we use.
in a sense.
Phygital. So you use physical and digital. You have a combination. So. But there's some truth in maybe both, but it is very difficult to have a balance. And like you're talking about, I agree with you. And because we get hung up and it gets twisted and warped, and the next thing you know, there's no physical involved, it's all digital. Or if there's no digital, then sometimes the physical is more difficult too. So, yeah. But I think maybe even though you don't want to go there, you said, but too much. But the idea of what difference does physical presence mean? What difference does it make? Why is that? And is there anything in God's design? For me, those are questions I had. I'm not just trying to make straw man questions. Those are questions for me to say. What is it about physical presence? And, some of the whole thing with the new technology and AI is what they call transhumanism, which goes beyond human. You know what I'm saying? It used to be humanism was the sin, and now they're saying people are going now to transhumanism, which almost obliterates humanism, the human element. And this whole idea of community, I hear you saying community has to have at least some physical presence. Am I right? Is that what we're talking about?
I'm not saying that you can't have community that's not. Okay. I think what we've done is kind of along the lines of the way Derek was describing it, is how we had something good, or you kind of start out with the benefits of something and then it goes completely off the rails. So I think there's absolutely ways to have beneficial community. You look back in COVID time, when nobody was really getting together, or people were getting together less or whatever. And there were, people did, my wife was in a small group that did Zoom calls for months. That was helpful. That was like a highlight of the week to be able to get on and be with those people. I remember Derek during the COVID year, I guess it was probably April or whenever they eventually had they had the event. And they finally did the NFL draft after COVID started that year. And me and Derek jump on a Zoom call with one of our buddies, and Derek shared the NFL draft, like the TV screen on his Zoom call. And we were like, it's like we were watching it together. Like that was a big deal. Like I still remember that, still think about that. And so it's like, it's not that you can't have community that way. I just think I just feel like we've excused.
Because, the special part about that is you go where, it was harder to do that stuff,
right?
And And so it was special. You're like, oh man, we're finally getting to do this. We're finally getting to go back together. If you would have asked us then, you'd be like, hey, would you rather be in a spot where you're all three sitting on the couch watching the NFL draft together? We would have said absolutely,
Right.
rather than do it over Zoom. But that's what was available to us at the time. And so you're super grateful for that.
Yes.
And those are the scenarios that we're talking about. Like where, you can, like it is able, you can have, there is value in that sort of thing.
But we're not even doing, it's like, we're not even doing that anymore. It's just an excuse. Now it's just like, and it's available and it's an excuse to not leave the house. Sure. Or we've completely gone, like regressed from even that point to, thinking that interacting with people on social media, not even face to face, like not FaceTime, but like interacting with someone else posts on Facebook or whatever, we think that that's like us actually talking to people. I don't know. It's just it just doesn't do what we think it does, or what we've let ourselves believe that it does. In my opinion, I don't know. There's just something about that. Like, I don't know. Social media is not community to me, but have I let myself think that it is? I don't know.
I know when we were a while back at church, us teaching pastors were doing something on AI and how to take a look at that. And one thing I remember in the time I taught that stood out to me in my studies was the thought came to my mind, if it makes you more human, use it. And now I know that the semantics and, what's the definition of human, and that's what I mean by if it makes you more human. The whole definition of what it means to be human and be connected to other humans in community, to be connected with them at the heart, not just in the head, not just, through some superficial experiences. What does that mean? And so what most benefits that happening? For me, that's why, for example, I still like the phone, and I know you don't. I remember, Eric, you may not remember this, but when texting started, I remember you enjoyed texting quite a bit when we first had texting back. We lived in Homewood at the time, and I asked you a question one time. I said, "Tell me why you enjoy texting more than talking on the phone," and you, because I just wanted to know. I wasn't challenging you. I was just wanting to know about it. And one of the things that that you said to me that startled me just a little bit was the idea. Well, it's easier to move on to the next thing. You know what I'm saying? Like if you get somebody on the phone, they might keep rattling, keep talking and that kind of thing. Whereas with texting, it's more short, abrupt, to the point, doesn't require the length of time for interacting and that kind of stuff. It was that kind of thing that you liked about it. You were a teenager at the time, so, I understood that. But, and I think you were talking mostly about your buddies and people at school and that kind of thing,
He was not talking about you.
I'm not sure about that. Because he and I were not texting at the time because I didn't text.
I've never, I would much rather talk to someone in a room than on the phone.
Would you? Yeah.
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 I don't even, even FaceTime to me is not a good enough replacement.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
You agree, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so funny because you'll hear, and some of this is like we think what we grew up with in our generation is like full on like connection. So it's funny that you'll hear people say, and this is not what you were saying here, but you'll hear people bemoan digital present, like to say like, oh, we're connecting, from FaceTime or whatever, but at the same time, like, but people just won't get on the phone anymore and talk to each other. It's like, how is that any different?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I hear you.
Right. Like, and we're talking about how you've got like this intense, connection over the phone. It's like, well, I'm looking at someone's face and talking to them. It's not any different.
Right. That's right.
but it's about what you grew up with sometimes, where you just kind of like excuse it and say like that they'll but people will say talking on the phone better than blah, and when in reality it's like that's not really any different than other than now we are all four in the same room talking to each other face to face.
Or they would always talk about sitting on the porch. Man, we just watched the train for hours and we weren't talking at all.
Yeah, you're just
we're still dysfunctional.
But you were sitting on the porch together.
Trading problems for new problems. Yeah, exactly. That's right. I mean, that's really what it is.
Well, Derek, your history may or may not inform you of this, but we couldn't have lengthy phone conversations when I was young. You know what I'm saying? Because we were on party lines.
Yeah, yeah.
It were party lines. And so there would be like 3 or 4 families on the same line. And if somebody got to yakking on the phone too long, you didn't have a chance. Excuse me. You'd try to cough or, and they'd still be, you'd pick up the phone, they're still talking. Nobody could get through.
The Andy Griffith Show had a great bit about that.
Yeah,
about party lines.
Yeah, they did.
I wish I could remember the episode.
He pulls it up again, and they're still going. And
they had a great bit about that.
Yeah.
How about that's real life for me? That was real life for me when I was a kid. Yeah. Long distance, for example, when your mom and I lived 70 miles away, we very seldom were ever on the phone with each other because it was long distance and cost too much, So you wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, Tina was at Bethany College in West Virginia, and she worked in this, I don't know what it was. It was like information desk. So, bro, I was calling that 1-800
Yeah. I hear you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You might ask her one question the whole conversation just to make it legit, like,
yeah.
So do you offer, what kind of, whatever? No.
Eric, when you earlier today mentioned to us we'd be talking about community, it drove me back to some stuff I've been studying and reading here recently. They talk a lot in this book called The Other Side of Church that talks about community. They talk about that some things changed 400 years ago when the Enlightenment period came in. And the Enlightenment period said that reasoning and thinking was the ultimate thing of man. And so they said that it switched a lot of things so that character transformation, which happens in community, by the way, research says with the brain that character transformation happens there. But we swapped that for, like even in church, it said that we swapped it for our left brains. Our left brain is where it processes the informations and that kind of information. But discipleship, a lot of community in church is more left brain because it's informational, it's doctrinal, it's that kind of thing. And that was a step away because it even impacted how we saw that. But that true character transformation takes place in community as far as the brain is concerned. It takes place in the right brain, which is where relationships often happen and are often impacted. And it's worth a look at in this whole discussion because there's some people that are writing about it and that are really, and not just that, experiencing and realizing that character transformation takes place only within community is what they're saying now. Character transformation does not take place in the left brain. As important as the left brain is, and we do need to train the left brain.
Let's not sully an entire half of the brain.
We're not doing that.
I mean,
we're not doing that. But the right brain has been sullied for a long time. The right side of the brain has been sullied. That's the point. The point's not to do away with the left brain. The point is that the right brain's been done away with in character transformation. So it's why people can know the Bible inside and out, and it have very little bearing on their lifestyle. Because it's left brain training, and right brain training happens in community, and character transformation happens. I see it in the field I'm in. Have been in professionally for 20 years at UAB in substance abuse. You can learn some principles about recovery. You could be smart as a whip about recovery, but if you don't flesh it out that's why something like CR, Celebrate Recovery, is so important in that group of people, because that's where relationships are formed. That's where character transformation actually starts taking place, not just in the left brain, but in the right brain. So, may I? One thing they said this was one particular phrase. Like their pastors, most Christians possess truth, but weren't trained how to love well. And that being trained how to love well is a right-brained experience. So that means when we have difficulty, we can know a lot of scripture, we can know a lot of stuff in our left brain, we can know the right thing, we can know in our minds, and it's because what had happened was truth and choice became the ultimate in our culture. Some people call it voluntarism, where truth and choice were the only thing. And relationships and how to be emotionally healthy in relationships was thrown out the window. And that's why I'm very grateful for some people that now are doing discipleship training, like Peter Scazzaro and other people who do things on community and emotionally healthy spirituality, emotionally healthy discipleship. And
I always wonder how long it's going to take us to really get the data on what we're doing to ourselves emotionally by not being with people. You know what I mean? Like how much time's going to have to, you watch TV and there's all these like medicines that, this medicine, that medicine, you like all the weird things that can happen to you possibly if you take it.
Right.
And
that's a really good
it's
thought.
not really been around that long, this culture of like not sitting watching trains being, a bad family. But we're just kind of doing it at a distance, and I'm wondering if there's going to be studies. I'm sure there are.
There are, and there.
But like what we're doing to ourselves, and like how many like decades it might be before we really we literally killed a generation.
Right.
So here's what we've done. In my opinion, we want to sit back with ourselves. I want to sit back with myself, with my politics, care more about my pets than I care about other people. Not bother to get to know you, not bother to get to know anybody, make assumptions, make judgments, tell you what you should believe, tell you how I think what you believe is harming other people, blah, 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 all this stuff. And we've done it all while like building up these walls in between ourselves and other people. And I don't know, I'm just sick of it all together. And I'm not putting myself above that. I'm not saying I haven't done it myself, but it's tiresome, and everybody looks all the way around trying to figure out trying to point the finger like on what's gone wrong, and we blame it on people's politics and and pick sides and all that stuff, and I feel like if we would bother to get to know people and not try to categorize folks into boxes, that we would just be better off.
I'll say that as a pastor, the one thing that is most painful for me is to pastor people for a long period of time and then learn that they still are not trained well in how to love each other. It's one of the things that is most disappointing to me, honestly. And that doesn't mean that I'm perfect at it. I don't mean that. But it has been something that has been a passion of mine for a long time, like you're talking about, Eric, is how can we do that? Somebody told me recently, somebody that's known me since my early adulthood, told me recently that when they first met me, they did not understand, and I took it as a compliment because that's how it was intended. But they said, I didn't understand why you cared so much about some of these people. That's what they told me. They said, I didn't understand why you cared so much about some of these people. And I thought, I never really thought about that, honestly. But I'm grateful that they saw that, because I did. I know I did care about it. And I've been told as a leader for many years off and on, I don't know why you cared about, usually it's caring about somebody else. Why do you care that much about that? Why does that even bother you? Why can't you just move on? Why can't you just do that? But I think a part of being trained to love well means you got to stay in the middle of it, bro. You got to stay in the middle of it, and you got to learn and how to deal with disappointment in those situations. But it's grievous to me, honestly. It's just grievous to me that when most of the leaders, and I work with a lot of leaders, and there's a pastor in another way part of the state that nobody knows, but would know on this podcast. But I'm watching what's happening in his life, and part of it is that he's not been trained to love well. And nor has he been loved well by other leaders, in my view. But the damage when leaders get into a mess, when people get into a mess, normally it is about not knowing how to love well. And that doesn't mean get along with everybody. And you're right, Eric. I love what you're saying about we can't just put people in boxes and then avoid them. We have to embrace them and be able to embrace people that would see themselves as our enemy even. That's why Jesus talked about loving your enemies. I mean, if you're trained, you have to be trained to love well to love your enemies. I mean, it's just do, because it's not a normal thing. And you have to be trained well. And I think you have to see other people. And I know one of those people for me, I remember from a church perspective, was my Uncle David, who was my pastor. I saw him love people that, Lord have mercy, it was just something else. And he was a farmer. He was a sharecropper farmer and a pastor. And he was really a very conservative man. And he never had a big church, and he never was highly educated, but he knew the Word of God, and but more importantly, he loved people. He was just that man. He loved people. Even though he had a marriage that was hell. And I'm not trying to cuss when I say that. I mean, it really was hellish for many years. And yet he loved in the middle of that. And I knew pretty early on I wanted to be like him. And sometimes I have flashbacks every now and then. That's something Uncle David would have done. Yeah. You know? And I'm grateful for that example of a man who loved well in the middle of, he may not have been everything else that some people think a pastor ought to be, but he loved well, and he never changed about that until his death from cancer at age 72. I'm grateful for examples like that. That's what I want to be like, not the powerful preacher that everybody thinks is smarter and knows everything. And that's okay. It's okay to be smart and know things, but that's not a role model for who you need to be as a person if you're a leader, or if you're a father or a husband or anything like that. So the only way we can be trained well, I think, is in community. I think you're really nailing it. I appreciate you bringing that up, Eric, as a topic for us tonight.
But you know, one thing you do, I've noticed about you will change the trajectory of things. Like, I remember one time I texted you. Mm-hmm. And you know what your smart butt said to me? No, I don't. You said, I texted you something because I wanted to keep a distance, you know. Yeah. Keep a nice little text and let's get on with business, you know. You said, why don't you call me and we'll find out? See, what you were doing was inviting me into that space that right, some people are afraid to go into, because when you start rubbing up against people, you get dirty sometimes.
But if you wanted to really take it to the next level, you should have driven to his house, because as we established before, the phone...
No, I get it.
Not good enough.
He'll do that too. And Chris, to his credit, Chris will do that.
I stopped by. I saw him the other day without an invitation. But my point, you know, to your point, it's like that's an easy. To your point, all of our points. It's the easy way to like stay connected, but don't get dirty. Yeah, you know, when you start rubbing shoulders with people, you get dirty. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you get someone dirty.
Yeah, that's right.
That'll preach right there.
For Derek and Steve and Chris behind the cameras, my name's Eric, and this has been Preacher in the Hat. We'll see you next time.